Well, good morning, everybody. We have a very special show for you today. We have the ladies from Love Justice International here, and we're going to be talking about modern human slavery and human trafficking and kind of try to begin to understand that very serious issue. So today on Uncommon Philanthropist, I have Briony Fickling and Cambri Driskell, both amazing leaders with that organization. So thank you, ladies, for being here today on Uncommon Philanthropist.
Thank you for having us. We're grateful.
Okay. Well, let's start off. I'd love to know a little bit about your personal story. Briony, let's start with you first.
Yeah, I think I started my story with Love Justice very unexpectedly. I didn't even know that human trafficking was a thing, that it was a problem. Coming from and growing up in South Africa, there's just that you're bombarded with all kinds of different socioeconomic issues and inequality as a whole, gender-based violence as a whole, and then a very sort of violent society, I suppose. So it didn't surprise me that human trafficking was a thing, but I came to Love Justice honestly through God's sort of coordinating of different people and different journeys and different decisions that I'd made over the years. And honestly, I'm just grateful that my paths did cross with Love Justices, because it's been an extraordinary journey personally, but also from a kingdom and ministry perspective, it's been an extraordinary gift to me. And hopefully my little content has also mattered in the lives of others too, which is an incredible gift.
So you are in South Africa, correct? That's your home?
That's right. Yep, that's born and bred
Born and
South
raised.
African.
Wonderful. And Cambry, how about you?
I'm from a little north of Atlanta, Georgia, and just am thankful that the Lord makes no mistakes. And similar to Briony, just it's His calling and conviction of my heart to want to fight human trafficking, and had the privilege to do that in a couple different avenues. But then a really close friend of mine introduced me to Love Justice through our VP of Advancement, Olsen Dukes, and from the first time we connected over the mission of what we do, it was like we were speaking the same language of just a heart for justice and freedom. And I think what's been the most amazing surprise is that when I stepped into Love Justice, I thought I was stepping into an anti-trafficking organization, which it very much is. But it's much more than that, and it's missional and just ministry focus through and through. And so to get to learn the Lord's heart for justice and freedom in this has been an incredible gift. So I have the privilege of helping our stateside advancement team. So Briony and our awesome overseas staff, they crush it on all programming and things that I frankly do not have the giftings for like they do. And so I'm thankful to get to be a part of the team that highlights their work and highlights the people that we get to serve and the stories of freedom. So grateful for that.
So where does the name come from?
I can share a little bit about that. So in Isaiah 58, we see Jesus. It's verses that he quotes later in his life when he opens the scrolls. But it's talking about that the Spirit of the Lord has come upon him to do a number of things. But really what we kind of hone in on is to set the captives free and to break every yoke. And then verse below that says, "For I, the Lord, love justice." And in that scripture, we see his kindness to the Lord's heart, like that justice and righteousness are the very foundation of his throne. And so that's where Love Justice gets its name, because our mission is to share Christ's love by fighting the world's greatest injustices.
So good. Well, let's talk a little bit about the scope of the organization, and then we'll kind of get into the details about what exactly it is that you do. So based in the U.S. in Nashville, correct? Briony, you want to kind of, but you're serving all over the world. If you can just unpack that a little bit about the structure of the organization and where you are.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the definition of a global organization, to be perfectly honest. There's an incredible sort of team working all over North America. And kind of, I'm assuming Nashville is where some people are, but I think everyone is based right across the country there. And the same in South Africa, where our head office is. There's a good group of people, including South Africans, but also American expats living and working from a small town in South Africa. And then a few of us sort of dotted around the country as well. We still have some
I suppose, foundations and relationships in Nepal, which is where the headquarters used to be, but have since sort of transitioned out of there. But we also have colleagues at Love Justice that live in the UK, that live in India, in Malawi. And so we really are quite a global group of people, which is exciting and fun and good to learn from others.
I love that so much. So let's talk about human trafficking, modern day human slavery. Briony, if you can just help us understand how prevalent the problem is and really what is, I know it's different in each area of the world, but just kind of give us an overview on that, if you would.
Yeah, I think there's two aspects to it for me. One, I'm not sure if we'll ever fully understand the exact nature of the prevalence of human trafficking because so much of it is unseen, but also so much of it is normalized. And that's kind of the other aspect of it for me is that we have these ideas and kind of tropes in our mind of what human trafficking looks like and what modern day slavery looks like is so much broader than many of the sort of stories and visuals that we've heard over the years in movies and in the media. In many countries, it's very normalized, and it's probably normal for any one of us as well. If you consider sort of domestic servitude and people sort of being stuck in someone else's home, serving their family with very little ability to leave for whatever reason, you're seeing child brides, which in some areas and in some contexts is very normal and common, even though it's yeah, it's certainly an injustice, and I think many would admit that. Not many would sort of define it under the umbrella of modern day slavery. So there's just this like breadth of what human trafficking looks like in today's day and age that I think is quite extraordinary. So even if we had an idea of what human trafficking looked like in this moment, I think probably times that by, multiply that by 10, 15 times that amount in our individual heads because of how broad modern day slavery can look like in today's day and age. But I will say the good news is there's some extraordinary research being done in this area. There's obviously a lot of data being collected, and we do have some ideas of what prevalence looks like in different contexts. And I personally am always surprised by just how extraordinarily big the problem is when you look at it from a data and numbers perspective as well.
So share some specifics, like country specifics. So like in Nepal, it's largely a labor issue. Is that correct? Help us
I
just
think
kind of understand kind of how it can vary depending on the geographical region.
Yeah. So I think one of the easiest ways to look at it and how I've sort of unpacked it, the understanding of what it looks like in different contexts, is to kind of realize that not every country is sort of trafficking people in terms of it being a destination for trafficked people. In some places, it's a source where people are leaving. They're escaping for whatever reason, or they're leaving behind and looking for, opportunities. And that's like what lures people to specific places. Some countries are known to be transit countries where people can easily move in and out of the borders from one place, a source location, to a destination location. And so you kind of want to start there in terms of understanding what is the situation? What is the human security situation in a particular place that is sort of, on the one hand, forcing people to leave and to, out of desperation, look for opportunities, to take opportunities that sometimes they know it's too good to be true, or they know they're risking their lives, but they have no other option for that. And then also looking at different industries and just different, I suppose, environments in different countries that tend to traffic and exploit people. So, for example, in between sort of the India and Nepal sort of borders, there's a lot of people from Nepal moving into being trafficked in India. And so those have their own sort of dynamics, I suppose. Recently, we actually have been unpacking an article about these cyber crime syndicates that are trafficking individuals in online cyber crime, like hubs, where they're unable to leave. And one of the interesting trends coming out of what we're reading is that a huge number of Ethiopians in particular are being recruited into these cyber hubs in Southeast Asia. I've spent time in the Philippines, for example, and that's a problem in their own country, sort of trafficking their own people, as well as bringing people into the country, into these sort of cyber hubs, but then also being recruited and lured to another country to be sort of trafficked into these hubs. I think it's so complex. Like, one country can be a source country, it can also be a source and transit country. And so it's just so complex. But I will say those trends are always evolving and always changing, which is why you've got to be so on the ball, especially when you're trying to prevent it, because these trends are changing. People are getting smarter. People are using technology to traffic others, but also there is just this breadth of sort of technology and access to communications across continents that is so much more accessible today than it's ever been for many people in even the remotest areas. So yeah, I don't know if I have a specific answer for you, to be honest. It's always changing.
Well, no, I think that helps us understand a little bit about the breadth and how it's changing and ever evolving. And I just applaud your organization and the people who work there so much, because a lot of times when it just gets too big, too complex, it's like we can't handle it. But it sounds like y'all are just digging in and being like, okay, we're going to be flexible and we're going to adjust and we're going to figure it out as we go. And it's really in service to the most vulnerable of these, because that's usually who gets preyed upon as a potential victim, correct? Those that really don't have much of a
Absolutely.
voice, the young, those living in poverty that
Yeah. Which, to be honest, it's very easy for me to sit here, comfortably behind my computer and say all these things. But honestly, it's our partners working on the front lines that are absolutely incredible. Like, they're the ones that wake up every day and say, we're going to tackle this, no matter what the day looks like, no matter how hot it is or how much it's raining or the sort of chaos amongst us. Like, some of our teams have worked when there's riots happening, when there's massive political upheaval in their countries, and they still go to work and kind of plug away at really trying to seek out the least of these brothers and sisters of ours, the most vulnerable people, and consistently are trying to help them. They're the ones facing up to traffickers. They're the ones having to negotiate with authorities and officials and people that get in the way. They're the ones who experience, I think, the spiritual attack of this work in a way that I could never understand. I'm sort of sitting really comfortably in some aspects. So to be honest with you, like, I can't take credit for that. I don't think Cambri could take credit for that. We just applaud and want to honor the friends of ours that are working on the front lines of this work, because it's really hard.
Okay. Cambri, did you want to kind of weigh in on the trafficking landscape at all?
Sure, I can speak to that. Something that I honor about our anti-trafficking team is that they really, like, one of our values at Love Justice is to fail fast and fail often and iterate quickly. And that is something I think I've gotten to see from one step removed off the front lines, is seeing how quickly our teams navigate complexities and our partners, and that there's every bit of just this grit, like you shared, of like, we are going to stand for the least of these, and we're going to do that in a way that meets the needs of that specific context. And so that looks different in all of the 19 countries where we currently operate today. We've piloted our human trafficking prevention model, which is the only known prevention model scaled in this way, called transit monitoring. And so we currently do that. And Briony can definitely speak to the specifics of when she talks about our partners on the front lines. That's them, our transit monitors. If she wanted.
Cambri. So let's tee that up, because what you guys focus on is prevention through transit monitoring. So that's really the heartbeat of the organization. Briony, talk to us about what that looks like, how exactly you do that.
Yeah, I think it's an incredible model that we've been developing and refining over almost 2 decades. And I think when we look at the impact of this model, where it began, and now where it is now, it really excites me, because it's a really powerful prevention model, but then also has this incredible ability to be adapted to different contexts in order to scale. So we're at the point now where this model is able to be implemented anywhere and can be scaled super quickly, which has been an extraordinary thing to see the development. I've been at Love Justice for 6 years, and just to see how it's changed and grown and improved and implemented in different contexts is super exciting. So the point of transit monitoring is to train and place monitors in really strategic places where people are moving, but specifically on their way to being trafficked. So there are just a couple of like really strategic transit hubs, whether it's airports or land borders or bus terminals. Maybe it's just a bottleneck, where people are being dropped off and picked up, but essentially moving from one place to another, where we know there is a high risk that someone could be trafficked along that route. Some of it is really easy to spot. If you've got a young child with an adult that you can't tell that there's a relationship there, the adult is doing all the talking or holding the passports, for example. Sometimes it's really obvious. But I think a lot of the time our monitors are just talking to as many people as possible and finding out, where are you going? How are you planning to get there? What have you been told? What are you expecting when you get to the other side? They're the good guys that come along people to find out whether they're traveling safely. And when there are sort of signs that something may not be right, they'll then dig into that, ask a few more follow-up questions. And the goal is to use what we call an intercept record form, which is essentially a questioning protocol that helps us to determine what is the risk that this person is at if they continue their journey. Are they at a high risk of human trafficking, in which case we still want to intercept someone because that risk is too high of not being able to leave if you are trafficked. But then there's cases where there's a clear evidence that someone is actively being trafficked in that moment, in which case we definitely want to step in and ensure that they don't reach their end goal. And the monitors are amazing. They work with people through the education process of understanding what human trafficking is, and then helping them to make a decision for their own lives about ultimately what is going to be best for them. But many people are traveling because they want to support their families. They want to put food on the table. So counseling through that process of, I think, the disappointment, there's often a sense of hopelessness, a sense of desperation. For many people, it's a matter of survival. And so it becomes really difficult. But our goal is to work with the individual to get them home safely, or to get them to a safe place, and to have equipped them with the information that they need to make those decisions for their lives. We also work really closely with law
Briony,
enforcement.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. So have a lot of these people like been recruited, and has a picture been painted about what they're going to be doing, all the money they're going to be making, and the reality is very different from that?
Yeah,
So there's
that's exactly it.
okay.
Yeah, I
So
think
there's a
these,
crushing disappointment happening, I'm sure, at that point of the intercept.
these sort of false ideas of an opportunity that's just too good to be true. And yet people either fully believe it, because I always say traffickers are master manipulators. They often know exactly what someone wants to hear in order for them to, uproot their lives to move somewhere else, to go somewhere else. But also a lot of people have this feeling in them already that there's something wrong, but there's no other opportunities. So the risk for them makes a lot of sense until they realize that there's all these different ways in which you can be held physically, but also, I think the threats and things that surround being trafficked keeps people in a place where they're unable to get home for different reasons. So I think that's the hardest part about it for me, is that people are just trying to look after their families. They're just trying to look for a better life for them, for their kids. How that often is the thing that traffickers use to manipulate and groom and convince and deceive. That's really hard for me personally to deal with, I suppose. And that's where the gospel comes in. That's, just so important. It's an opportunity to really love people in that moment of hopelessness, and to introduce them to a Jesus who loves them and knows them and cares about them in a radical way that we as humans can't always give people. Well, we can't.
So it's such an interesting process. So you have spotters, and they recognize someone that may be a potential victim of trafficking. So they're intercepted, and then that's when the partners come in, right? And they implement the questionnaire, and then
Our transit monitors, the ones who are standing at those high volume transit areas, standing sentinel looking for those signs, are actually the ones that then do the intercept protocol, that put that forth in terms of the interview, making sure. And we don't do a lot of questions in vain. We use every bit of that data into our anti-trafficking database, which we're very much cognizant that if we're intercepting one person, the data that they might be able to share with us about how they were lured into that too good to be true opportunity can help us, then our teams and our partners, prevent other people from being trafficked. And so that is where we deeply care about those questions from a further preventative standpoint, and then caring holistically, like Briony mentioned, that we want to be the hands and feet of Jesus in that moment. And so a lot of times that's a warm meal and just giving them, just letting them be heard and share a little bit about their story, and then sending them home. And just to support Briony, only 5.1% of our potential victims know that they're being trafficked. And so something that Love Justice is also really dedicated to is sharing this awareness in places where there is such an increased level. And it breaks our heart of just human vulnerability, of empowering them with that education and that knowledge of people preying on that and manipulating that. So that way, when we do return, most of our potential victims are able to go back home. And when they go home, then their entire families are empowered with this new awareness of just the devastation that honestly could have been waiting them. And so that's where I really honor our team and just wanted to share kind of number wise of like zooming out of what Briony's sharing very like at the front lines of the immediate, is that conservatively 1 million people are moved across borders annually as victims of human trafficking, and that's quite conservative numbers. But even if it's just 1 million people, that's still 2 people every minute being trafficked. Our organization, our partners, are intercepting 1 person every 20 minutes right now, and have had the sincere gift of getting to intercept more than 1,000 people since 2006. And so just grateful for our overseas team and leading that and stewarding that in every new context.
Well, those are some tremendous numbers. And I saw on your website where you said 50 million people are living in modern day slavery because of human trafficking.
To Briony's point a little bit earlier, the numbers about human trafficking prevalence for a long time, when human trafficking lived in the shadows, like if you think about culturally, like as a society, people weren't really talking about human trafficking till even almost like a decade, kind of 15 years ago. And so you can imagine that the data is still catching up, the awareness about these schemes and syndicates and all of that. And so there's different numbers. We're always very skeptical even of our own data. We never want to over exaggerate or underrepresent the exploitation that's occurring worldwide. And so that's where we say, okay, even if it's conservatively 1 million people every single year across international borders, that's not including the people that are moved just within their country or even trafficked digitally, like Briony was talking about. So it's unfortunately, like Briony was saying, when you peel back the layer, there's many more layers to it.
So I love to talk about origin stories and where the nonprofit began, because so often it begins with one person who sees an injustice and decides to do something. Who would like to share more about the origin story and where the organization started in Nepal?
Okay, I can jump into that. You're 100% right. It did start with one person. Well, it started with a group of college students from Taylor University that went to Nepal for a mission trip, and just their hearts broke for the street children there in Nepal. So they came home and with plans to start a family home in Nepal. And so one of our board members called his friends, so this group, 2 of them, he called our now founder and CEO and said, hey, I'm going to start this family home in Nepal that we talked about while we were there last time. And John said, count me in. And so he went to
Nepal.
Nepal.
They were like 22 years old, right?
Literally. I mean, they had not, the first time they went to Nepal, it was, I believe, their senior year. So when he went back to start that family home, it was right after finishing college. And he got there and he quite literally never came back. And so John has been just a leader, and we so honor his leadership, that he has led with a brokenhearted anointing for the least of these, and he let the Lord break his heart for what breaks the Lord's heart. And when he first got to Nepal, that was for orphan and abandoned children there, and that began our family home ministry. And we still today have we have 15 family homes operating where we empower orphan and abandoned children to become world changers for Christ. That's our mission there. And so we're so grateful for that. And that has then morphed into what we have now as a dream school, which is the same mission, but from an educational standpoint. And last year we got to serve over 250 students. And so that's where the organization began. It was seeing the immediate need of caring for the least of these in terms of street children there in Nepal. And John, not coming home, just had eyes to really scan the land to see where is the world's greatest injustices and where can we have an impact. And that's when he learned about a partner in Nepal doing, at their time, border monitoring. So on that India-Nepal border that Briony mentioned earlier. And that is where he saw this unique opportunity that very few times do we actually have an opportunity to impact someone's life tangibly in a way that's transformative. And when he saw that, and he got his first email in an internet cafe, that the first intercept had happened through just even the efforts and partnerships that Love Justice was building up, just kind of grassroots there in Nepal at that time. It just spurred on his heart, and really his leadership and the people he's brought on and the way he's led has brought us now to where we get to do that transit monitoring at a globally scaled way, 19 different countries. So John's awesome, and we're thankful that he would let the Lord break his heart, and then he also wouldn't be content staying there, that we wanted to do something, and we have, he has every day since.
Well, I think that's, so many nonprofits work with very little budget, just a shoestring of a staff, and you kind of start in one lane and it's like, no, this is what we do, instead of being open to the call of God and always having your eyes open to, no, we can still do that, but we can do this as well. So that's just such a great story. So who can speak to trafficking in the U.S.? Because I think it looks quite different. And does Love Justice serve here in the U.S.?
I can share a little bit with my feet on the ground here. We, as just like followers of Christ, we care about the human trafficking that goes on in our backyards as much as we do beyond borders. And yeah, as an organization, we feel uniquely called and convicted to be where we can have the most impact. And so right now, that means that we are actively operating mainly in Africa and South Asia. But we also are very aware that human trafficking goes on in the United States. Actually, I used to work in state government, and so there's entire anti-trafficking landscape specific, like domestically as well. And so the realities of that look different than the realities of trafficking in countries where Love Justice operates, even just in law enforcement jurisdiction. In the kinds of trafficking, digital grooming comes about likely a bit more here just through social media, and sex slavery is definitely more prevalent than labor trafficking here in the United States. And so those realities are definitely unique to the United States. And Love Justice, we're thankful that we know that the table that fights trafficking is a table that needs many, many seats. And we're not naive or ever want to act like we are the only solution to fighting human trafficking. Instead, we want to be a part of building tables that all people come together with all stakes in the fire, because a $150 billion industry is not going to come down by one organization or by any of us operating in silos. And so part of our heart and kind of our stateside advancement strategy and vision at like this organizational moment and season that we're in is thinking through, praying through, acting upon how do we create unity around this fight for justice? And we're doing that in many ways right now. We do that through the advancement strategy team and through just a couple of different avenues that we're pursuing of ways to really bring people together around the same table. But yes, so to that point, we value and honor the partners in the United States that are fighting human trafficking, and we work closely with them. And something that we're kind of launching into in this season right now is thinking through really creating micro communities in select regions and cities across the United States that will bring hearts together around just this heart for freedom and justice and for the Lord's call for that. And so that's in the early phases right now. We've been honored to get to scale our programming as an organization for the past 20 years. And now we're in a season of really scaling. How do we amplify that story and scale resources in a way that brings the type of networks and communities together that can not just intercept one person every 20 minutes, but one person every 10 minutes, and increasingly being able to scale our work so that way, not even just for our love justice numbers, but really as a community, how do we love justice and how do we promote it in every single way that we can, whether it's by our work or with our partners.
So great. One of the reasons for the platform Uncommon Philanthropists is I believe that with awareness, people will be inspired to take action. So if somebody is watching or listening to this conversation, a lot of times people are just blinded. It's like, it's just too overwhelming. How can I even begin to help? So what would you say to the everyday person who is kind of on the sidelines? How can they engage in a meaningful way to help combat or just raise awareness on this very serious issue? Briony, you want to start?
I'll definitely be happy to start, and Cambri can finish it off and take us home. But one of the things that I'm constantly inspired by at Love Justice is just the number of people that really wanting to sink their teeth into this work and kind of get involved in terms of from a career perspective, and to say like, I'm gonna do what I can to get involved in this work. And we have some incredible, I think, opportunities to become part of our expanding team, which is super exciting. I'm very excited about the future of Love Justice and where we're headed, and we need amazing people to join us and to join this really cool family here with big visions about disrupting human trafficking forever. Honestly, we have a big goal ahead of us, and we believe that God's called us to some really exciting work on this mission with him. And then I think, like, from a volunteer perspective as well, at least in the anti-trafficking department, we're working with some incredible people who, over and above their busy lives, are giving and dedicating significant time to investing in this work and supporting us from different perspectives, from a data auditing perspective, from a data science and software development perspective. There's some really cool people that are really sacrificially giving their time to this kind of work. And so I would encourage anyone who specifically wants to get involved in that way to reach out to us. And we've got an amazing careers page with some really exciting roles listed there. And I'll hand over to Cambri to discuss the rest.
No, thank you. And that's the gift of wherever you are, whatever season, that there is a place for you to belong in the mission of sharing Christ's love by finding the world's greatest injustices. And we really mean that. We don't just say that. And so on the state side, if someone's perhaps in the United States and doesn't have, that's where they're rooted, in whatever season and margin that they have, we want to offer like meaningful opportunities for them to partner and belong with us in our mission. And so that can look in a lot of different ways. We have lots of volunteer roles on the state side as well, and supporting the work of our advancement strategy. So amplifying the story of love justice, whether that be in people bringing their fundraising skills, their social media skills, their even just administrative kind of expertise to the table, and offering that in a way that they have time to. But even if it's not in time capacity, if people have relational capacity and want to just join us and like, I'm going to just represent the story of love justice, and any opportunity that I can share about this fight for freedom, I'm going to, and I'm going to share about an organization that really has tangible impact in that. And if it's not relational and someone has financial capacity to give, then we're always loving, honestly, the opportunity to get to do that together. Something that we're really proud of is that for unmatched impact on the dollar, for only less than $150, we can intercept one person in those crucial moments between their freedom and slavery. And we don't take that lightly. For less than what the average American goes out to dinner these days with their family, you can intercept one person from potentially years of exploitation. And that continually is impressed upon my heart, that when we invite someone to give with us, we're not asking to take from them near as much as we're offering them to get to be a part of an opportunity to truly impact lives together. And so I'll just say there's amazing ways. Everyone has a seat at the table at Love Justice, and we want to invite people into that in whatever way they feel called and convicted.
Well, I've had exposure with international ministries, and the US dollar really goes so far in these areas. So it's such a good investment. And I know we have concerns here and needs that we need to take care of, but I think your generosity strategy should always be leaning towards the least of these, and Lord knows people who are being trafficked. Is there anybody more vulnerable than that? So thank y'all for the work you do. Closing out, the tag for Uncommon Philanthropist is let go, not let's go, let go. So I would like each one of you to take a shot at saying, let go, and then just what does that mean to you and the work you're doing with your organization? Cambri, we'll let you go first.
Okay, I love this. I love a little challenge. Let go. I think a lot of times, and I'm just as much in this as anyone else, is that there's this kind of wanting to grasp onto what I have. Like, I want to do the next best step. There's only so much time in the day, only so much resource, relational capacity that all of us have. And when I hear let go, I'm continually reminded in this work and also just in my daily life that when the Lord invites us to care about justice, or when we just take one step to say, I'm going to stand for freedom, and even what feels like a tiny way to us, we gain so much more than we think we're letting go. Like when we let go of our time or our resources or even just our voices, we get to stand for those that are voiceless in a way that can truly change their lives. And so I'm humbled by that role, and I feel like I don't think of my work as work. I feel like I have the best joy in the world of getting to join the Lord's heart and justice every day, because he gives us the world. Like, he get this immense gift. I would say quickly, our founder would never tell you that his family has sacrificed for love justice. He would tell you that they have gained the world and getting to see the Lord's heart for freedom come alive. And they have given a lot of years and a lot of time being on the front lines. And so that is the heartbeat of love justice. And that's what I'm reminded and grateful to be reminded of in my work every day.
Beautiful, Cambri.
Yeah, that is beautiful. Let go. I don't think there's a phrase that defines my journey and what I've learned and gained more than that phrase, honestly. Let go and let God, right? I am an incredibly ambitious, driven individual. That is how God created me. And learning how to use that drive for His good and ultimately for for good and His glory is something that is such a privilege to be able to do. But the reality is, I have so little control over anything. This injustice is so extraordinary. We're working in places that, I am not physically there at. Our partners are incredible, and I can't always do everything I can to provide them with all sort of the answers that they need, all the resources that they need. And sometimes that can weigh me down. The spiritual attack, the constant sort of struggle and challenges that I think are just natural when you're fighting the world's greatest injustices sometimes feel like an extraordinary burden. God continues to shape me towards and to soften my heart, is that it's not just on me. Like, this is His mission. He cares more about any one of these individuals than the person I love the most in this world. And I think that like learning, like what Cambri said earlier about learning more about the heart of God and His heart for justice has just been an incredible gift to me, but has also allowed me to grow spiritually and like mature in that aspect of like not needing to control everything, knowing that even when I take a break or I'm resting or I'm not working, that He is working. When we can't always get to everyone, we can't always get to places that we want to be at as quickly as we want to be at, that He's already there working and coordinating people and having paths cross. And I just think that is beautiful. This is His mission. He cares about these people more than I could ever imagine. And like learning how awesome His love for people and for justice has been just a massive personal gift and a journey, to be honest.
That is amazing. It's about being hands and feet.
Yeah.
And offering what we have and letting go of the rest. How can people get in touch to learn more about Love Justice International?
Awesome question. Our website, lovejustice.ngo, has just our marketing team. I honored them and their hard work. They've pretty much made everything that you could want in one hub there, whether it's to go to that careers page that Brian was mentioning, see a contact like form info email to give, to just learn more about our work. So that is all there. Our Instagram, Love Justice, short for international, also just has a breadth of just sharing the stories and really like kind of behind the scenes of our heart and what we do. And then also just kind of plugging in that way will be kind of a good insight into what we're doing in our team. So both those ways, and if you want direct contact, our emails on our website as well. And we promise it's not going a black hole of, you will get a response from one of our team members, and we'll be excited to get to connect with you.
Ladies, thank you so much for your time, for what you do in serving the least of these. This has just been a delight for me to learn more about Love Justice and keep up really the amazing work.
Thank you for having us.
Sure. Let go.
The monitors on the front lines for Love Justice are the most important people in the entire organization.
I found the one. I found the one.
I found the one.